To this explainer. Today, we're going to literally zoom out to demystify the mechanics of human interaction. We're talking about starting from those tiny, microscopic firing neurons in your brain and zooming all the way out to the sprawling global village. Because, communication isn't just one single thing, it's this fascinating, multi-layered process that scales up depending on exactly who's involved and how the message gets sent.
So let's dive right in with a question. Who do you actually talk to the most every single day? Seriously, think about it for a second. Is it your partner? Maybe your boss? Your best friend?
Well, the surprising answer is actually yourself. And that perfectly sets up our agenda for today. We're mapping out this expanding scale of communication, starting right inside your own mind, then connecting with another person, comparing those two, and finally, zooming way out to groups, organizations, and reaching the masses.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Inside Your Own Mind. This is the absolute foundation of all interaction, exploring the rapid-fire communication happening inside your body right this very second.
The absolute crucial point here is that intrapersonal communication is, quite simply, self-communication. You are acting as both the sender and the receiver of the message. It's all that neurophysiological activity working to initiate, receive, and process messages through your body's own internal system. So it's what's happening when we think, when we feel, act, or even when we just verbalize things to ourselves.
To see how this actually plays out, we have to look at stimuli. Let's say a mosquito bites you. Well, that's an external stimulus, right? Your neurological network shoots that feeling straight to your brain. The brain interprets it and instantly sends back a neural response telling your hand to swat the bug. Or think about an internal stimulus. Say you're dehydrated, your lips are burning, your throat is super dry. Those internal signals are literally informing your brain that your body needs water. In both of these scenarios, the cycle completes when the brain transmits a message to the smooth muscles that regulate your body movements. And the crazy part? This whole shebang happens in the literal twinkle of an eye.
Now, what's really fascinating about all this is that this internal process is the absolute foundation for every single other form of communication we're going to talk about. Intrapersonal communication is vital to human growth. It's how we develop our self-concept, our self-determination, and our self-motivation. Basically, before you can even utter a single word to anybody else, you have to think, feel, and organize that idea internally.
Which brings us right to Section 2, connecting with another. Let's look at the spontaneous exchange that happens when we share those internal thoughts with another human being.
With interpersonal communication, we're expanding our scale to 2 people, or maybe a few more, actively exchanging messages. Essentially, this is relationship exchange through oral, face-to-face encounters. A really striking feature of this level is just how highly spontaneous, loosely organized, and completely unplanned it is. Think about your everyday encounters, whether social or at work. This is the core of how you interact with your friends, your doctor, or your manager.
And get this, a research study actually found that adults spend a staggering 52% of their waking hours speaking, listening, and conversing interpersonally. That is massive. It occupies a major chunk of our total communication. Literally over half your day is spent in this specific face-to-face kind of exchange.
Moving to Section 3, Intra versus Interpersonal. Because these 2 foundational levels are so deeply intertwined, we really need to break down the key distinctions between them.
First up, let's look at their nature. Intrapersonal is entirely confined to the self. You're the source, you're the receiver, and you aren't sharing these ideas with anyone else. Interpersonal, on the flip side, is not confined at all. It inherently moves beyond the individual, which allows us to reach other people with our ideas and emotions, and of course, lets them do the exact same thing with us.
Next, the difference in speed is just monumental. Intrapersonal transmission happens through internal nerve impulses, which are non-mechanical and fire off in a tiny fraction of a second. It's almost impossible to even measure. Interpersonal communication, though, relies on external channels. And because you have to pick a channel and then actually wait for a response, it can take a really long time. I mean, if you've ever agonized while waiting for a text message to come back, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes it can take a month or more just to close that loop.
But most importantly, communication always begins with intrapersonal communication. It is the absolute beginner in the field. Interpersonal communication is entirely dependent on that very first internal spark of an idea. It literally cannot act as a foundation. Instead, it only starts its operations exactly where intrapersonal communication ends.
All right, let's zoom out even further for Section 4, Groups and Organizations. Here we're expanding the collective.
You see, a small group isn't just some random crowd of people. It happens when more than two individuals gather face-to-face for a highly specific purpose. Think of something like a jury or a company grievance committee. The ideal size for the greatest efficiency is usually between 5 and 9 members. These groups come together to make decisions or solve problems that are just way too complicated for one single person to tackle alone. And a key takeaway here is that every single member influences and is influenced by every other member.
Building right off of that, organizational communication takes those interpersonal and small group interactions and it applies them systematically. An organization essentially brings together manpower, machines, and money to hit a predetermined objective. And to do this effectively, the communication happens in a series. This serial transmission is kind of like a massive, high-stakes game of telephone. A message moves through a whole chain of people. The first person gets it, transmits it to others, and it flows downward, upward, horizontally, or even diagonally across the company, whether that's to issue instructions, collect data, or hear employee grievances.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, reaching the masses. This is the absolute largest scale of human interaction on our spectrum, dealing with public and mass communication.
So public communication, or what we usually just call public speaking, is defined by a single communicator addressing a large group of people, usually face-to-face. The audience generally doesn't participate much here. Just picture a political leader at a rally, a teacher giving a classroom lecture, or even an airline attendant showing you how to use the life-saving equipment. It's a one-to-many relationship, but crucially, everyone is sharing the same physical space.
Now, people mix up public communication with mass communication all the time because, well, they both involve a lot of people. But true mass communication has some absolute strict rules. A massive crowd just isn't enough. It specifically requires an intermediary mechanical channel, like radio, television, or a newspaper, to bridge vast distances. It's all about spreading one message at the exact same time to a massive, heterogeneous audience. That just means highly diverse listeners who are totally separated from the source by vast boundaries of space and great physical distance.
And all of this brings us up to the ultimate zoomed-out level, global communication. Rapid technological development has literally turned our modern world into this completely interconnected global village, allowing us to exchange information with folks from any culture, anywhere. So I want to leave you with a final thought from our explainer today. As you go about your day, from those split-second nerve impulses telling you that you're thirsty, to the interpersonal chats that take up 52% of your waking hours, how are your own internal thoughts scaling up to bridge across cultures and connect with this massive global village? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep zooming out.